So when I first was invited to present here today, I was very excited because I work literally walking distance from Levi Stadium, and I was able to fly out before the game, not having tickets. I just want to say thank you, Ralph, for having me and letting me come out, particularly Sunday morning before all the festivities began. So Coherent is a laser manufacturer. We operate in the photonics industry, and we serve many, many markets. The company's turning 50 years old this May, which for a Silicon Valley company is starting to get a little bit up there. But in our last annual report, the letter to the shareholders said, you know, our best days are ahead, and I truly believe that at the moment. We're about an $800 million company from a sales perspective, and we're really about 12 smaller companies underneath that. So it's a very challenging environment from a customer support perspective. My role at Coherent is to lead the customer support team. We've got about 180 field engineers. We support more or less, we break it into three broad categories: scientific customers, commercial customers, and industrial customers. So that would be an 8 business day response, next business day response, and 12-hour response. And so we certainly have our work cut out for us doing this. You can see our business is also, if you look at the geographical sales distribution, very large in Asia Pacific. One thing I will say is it's been a very strong challenge because of the nature of the business. With the 12 businesses, they all have their own general managers. So you know, a lot of the programs we're doing, we're picking and choosing. Gaining consensus across all dozen businesses is so much fun, I gave it up a few years ago. I won't do that anymore. So I put this slide together. I recently presented at my children's high school for career day, and I wanted to make the point, you know, lasers are not necessarily what you see in the movies. They're not death rays. I put up a few pictures here as well. So we're in material processing. So this could be anything from drilling through thin metal or thick metal, and as we move more into industrial, we're going to moving into higher powers and can do spot welding, that sort of thing. And I think even in denim jeans, I think some of the marking and the fraying of jeans are often done with lasers as well. So they're all over the place in material processing market. And here I wanted to show you a picture of a laser so you don't get any sense of this. It's kind of a boring box-like looking thing. We sell everything at Coherent, from these small but kind of powerful diode lasers to things that are about the size of a city bus. And those things are going into the markets to help create smartphones. So this image here, we take this ultraviolet beam, which comes out like in a rectangular shape. It's like spit out of a flamethrower. The thing's throwing out so much power. And we shape this thing into a nice homogeneous long line, as long as 1.5 meters. And that 1.5 meter line is then used to scan a piece of a layer of polysilicon over the glass. This is done for every smartphone with a high-resolution display. So pretty much every phone in this room, if you have a smartphone, is probably done with a Coherent laser with this process, which allows for the brightness of the display. You'd have much less efficiency without this process, and you wouldn't be able to have the pixel density. So just to give you an idea of a few of the things we're doing. And then we break it down into 4 major markets: microelectronics, materials processing, which I've talked about, OEM components and instrumentation, and then government research and scientific research and government programs. And so what we're doing with regard to smart connected products varies a little bit in these spaces. In some areas, we're not able to connect to anything. We've had intelligent products for a while. And I was on a webinar with I think Michael Porter and Jim Heppelman did one recently from Harvard Business on the Internet of Things, and I talk about, you know, monitoring, controlling, optimizing, and automating through the Internet of Things. We're really much more in the optimizing side of the equation. And we do struggle with proprietary process. You know, Apple, for example, is a very secretive company. If we go into one of the plants where they're manufacturing a smartphone, you can't walk in the door with your phone. There's no chance that they're going to connect anything to anything. If you walk in there and you're wearing pants that have a zipper, they're going to ask you to go change into track pants so that you have zero metal on you anywhere. They may even make you take your glasses off. So the security there is great. But on the other hand, we do have some stories. I've got a couple of examples I'll show you on slides, one in the microelectronics area. Materials processing is something that we're looking to move into a little bit more, and I'll tell you a story about that coming up. OEM components and instrumentations, especially with the laser eye care piece, we think that this is something that's really going to be bigger for us as well. So I got a little bit on that. And then on the scientific research piece, that laser I showed you in the last slide, I got an example on that, and so we'll go through those here quickly. But I wanted to cover our strategy at the moment with this is, I'm really trying to drive improved customer lifetime value. So we're talking about the number of gross margin dollars that we're able to bring in over the lifetime of the customer. So you can extend the lifetime to do that, or you can bring in more gross margin dollars. You can upsell. There's many different ways to do that. Contracts obviously are a big piece of that. And that does relate back to the customer satisfaction that Matt was talking about as well, because if they're going to repeat customers, you're spending less to go out and get them. The number is what, 5 to 10 I've heard, factor 5 to 10 cheaper to have a customer come back than to go out and find a new one. So retaining them matters a lot, and it can help drive that. Obviously, we want to make our customers happier. Reducing the downtime is really a big driver for them because it's really allowing them to get their work done. We're all about customer success and making them successful in what they're doing. And then improved scale is, I'm talking about with the company trying to grow, I'm trying to stay flat with regard to my expense and my headcount around the globe. And I think we're poised to do that partly because we have tools now with this expanded remote capability. We are seeing where we have an improved first attempt rate. I think Ralph mentioned you can now do an analysis back in, from your contact center and say, I need this part. Or, hey, for some of our products are made in a clean room environment where we're actually building the optical resonator for the laser, and we're soldering these things in place, and the alignment is extremely sensitive. So it's a very difficult thing to do, and what we're trying to do is make sure that so sometimes the laser needs to go back to the factory to get fixed. Other times we do the repair, especially if it's a power supply thing. The service strategy varies quite a bit with the technology and the product itself. And what we've been able to do is not only improve our first time fix rate, but we're also helping customers avoid sending them back to the factory. Scattered end customers is more and more of an issue. I mentioned to you that, I shouldn't say issue, it's a challenge for us. I've mentioned to you that we're selling a lot to Asia, but one example I'll give you is we sold a laser to a customer in Wuhan in China, and that customer put that laser in their own tool, and then they've sent it off to Ghana. I've never seen a laser in Ghana before. It's the first time I've ever heard of anybody shipping one to Ghana. They called us up one day and they said, your laser's got a problem, and we don't want to go fix it. Can you fix it? And we said, well, the way we're set up with our relationship, it's your responsibility to take care of your end customer. And they're like, well, we don't want to go there because of Ebola. So our only real option was to try to do a remote session there. Unfortunately, we didn't get that laser going, but that is an example, maybe an extreme example, but definitely throughout Southeast Asia, we're seeing in a very high mix and low volume kind of thing where we've got units in the Philippines of this laser, and we've got a manufacturing plant going into Malaysia. We've had some in Indonesia. And we don't have the footprint for that. And the only way to really support these things is through this kind of methodology. And we are also trying to improve the customer experiences. We're one of the 80% Matt was talking about. And we're kind of starting small, and we're trying to grow bigger. But these are the things that we're pushing on at the moment in order to get these results. And the customer experience management practices is a big part of what we're doing as well. So wanted to give you a couple of examples. So we've got this particular customer is in the microelectronics space. When the laser is generally one of the more popular failure modes is your power starts to drop. You've got X number of watts of a certain wavelength of power, and it starts to go down. And with this particular laser, it was a ultraviolet laser. One of these lasers that is made in a clean room environment, so you have to ship this thing back to the factory to get it fixed. And we are able to do an optimization program. It takes a couple of hours over the phone, but we're now doing about 40 of these things on a monthly basis, and about 80% of those, we're able to recover the power for those customers. And for that customer, their uptime is up. They're up and running, they're happy, they're in production environments. So the OEM that has actually integrated this into their tool so that these customers can operate is delighted, because they would have had the responsibility for importing and exporting and all the shipment costs going from, let's say, China to Germany, which is where our plant is located in this particular case. And we have an arrangement with this customer where they're under service contract for all of their lasers. So the more of these things that we can avoid doing the repair, and these repairs may be a cost of, I don't know, $30K a pop or something like that. Every time we're resolving one of these things, our gross margin is going up. We're avoiding that cost. And it's been a very powerful tool. Again, going back to customer lifetime value, this is what we're after. We're trying to improve that gross margin. And this has been a very strong tool for us. The other thing I would say is we haven't necessarily seen, we're not advanced enough in what we're doing to get predictive and to really sell the value to the point where we can charge for what we're doing here. This is much more right at the moment about cost prevention. But when this customer, this is not an easy customer. They're a very difficult negotiator, and they're always driving price. Fair enough, everybody's doing that. But one day they kind of pitched a fit and they said, "That's it. We're taking all of our lasers off of contract, and now you guys are going to get stuck having to negotiate that." Having this in place, we basically said, "Look, if you want all of these dial-ins, as we call them, to occur now, that's no longer going to be done under you do that. We're going to have to charge each one of your end customers for every dial-in that we're doing for those few hours of work, which means every one of them are going to have to become a customer on our system. We're going to have to do a credit check to make sure that they're okay, that we can actually get money from them. And you're going to be driving your end customers crazy if you do that, right?" So in the end, they basically turned around and said, "Okay, no, we want to stay under the contract, under the model that we're going right at the moment." So while it's not driving revenue, I would say it's certainly protecting the revenue that we have and the value that we've established. Second scenario, another laser system, the Chameleon. I showed you that image earlier. That's inside the laser cavity. It's not a great picture, but we have all these optics which are, once again, soldered into place. So it's a technique or a scheme we call permaline. And the laser head, there's a controller, so we're able to do some fix in these particular things, but we're not able to fix when there's something going on in the head. And that has to go back to the factory. Or we sell contracts where the customer can do an exchange. So we'll get them up and running in a couple days if they're under the contract. Our competitor, we've got an arch enemy. Coherent came out of a company called Spectrophysics. So our founder was starting, so there's actually an older laser company in the Valley, a few years older than us. And we've been battling in the scientific market with them for years. We up-spec, they up-spec, we're just mortal enemies. And eventually, they got wind that we were sending some of these things back. Lasers are very, very sensitive. They're difficult products at times. Reliability isn't where you necessarily want it, especially because it's a low-volume product, and it's often going into scientific where there's low usage kind of environments. And so when they got wind that we were sending these back, and we did have a rash of failures that went on, they were going to the market and saying, "Look, we'll put a tent in. We'll put a temporary clean room in your facility, and we'll fix your laser there, so you don't have to send your laser back to us." And it was actually starting to have an impact on us, and we debated, do we want to do it or not want to do it, decided there's too much risk. The environments vary too much. If you reseal this cavity back up, and there's contaminants in it, you're going to wind up getting that contaminant baked on every optic inside the cavity, and it's going to cost the customer probably more money and more downtime and more repeat visits should you do that. So we've decided we want to go the higher quality route, although it is more painful to do. And so we started losing market share. I mean, I was getting calls from the sales guys regularly over losing these kinds of things. What we did was we changed the game. We basically said, look, we know we've got a smart product here. We can do a simple connection from desktop to desktop like IT does when you control a desktop. We can basically plug in the customers into the laser, their computer into the laser, and then we can run all of our diagnostics that way. And let's invite every customer we have to do a health check with their laser. We can optimize it or we can do a visit. And in fact, this program has actually changed the whole story in the marketplace now because we don't necessarily need to visit you. We can get you up and running in a couple hours. They've got to come, they've got to do all of this stuff. So the discussion's gone away in the market. So it's been a very powerful competitive tool, if you will. And I look at the competitors' website now and I can see they now offer remote service capability on their products as well. This is our future model. For me, this is going to be used in a couple of areas where we're actually starting to do some monitoring, where we're taking data, we're streaming it into the cloud, creating a data lake, and we're going to start analyzing these things. We're going to be starting small, though, but I mentioned in the laser eye area, this will be something that we're doing. And I've partnered with an influential guy in our engineering organization, and he's been able to get this spread out across a few other product lines. We're starting to get a little commonality across these things. And I'm looking forward to this being able to enable us to actually start to do predictive and start to get revenue driving activities and contracts in place. So just to finish up here, I'm not going to read all of these things, but I would say there's three things that I've learned from all of this. Number one is it's not necessarily, at least in our marketplace yet, revenue driving, but it is revenue protecting. And it is driving improved gross margins. So that's one thing that's very, very big for us. It's amazing to me how powerful being able to do this can be in all of the different areas that it can help with. It's very flexible. We're trying to break into high power fiber laser markets where there's spot welding and things of this nature. There's some well-established players there. And one of the things we're going to do is the player that's there won't let the end customer do anything. They need to do it themselves. They're very controlling about all this stuff. We're going to give them the tools to do that, but we're going to use that scheme I just showed you to be able to allow them to do the work with us monitoring what's going on so we can guide them and make sure we're protecting ourselves from a warranty cost perspective, but attacking the opponent at a place where it hurts their culture, where they have to give up. They either have to give up some of that control or they're going to be starting to fight on our terms. So that flexibility is really huge. And also embedded in that, I would say, is the key piece that it's really big, at least from a first mover advantage as a competitive weapon in the marketplace. So that's really all I wanted to say. That's the journey of Coherent so far. We're just taking our first steps. But the results so far have been fabulous. I'm glad to be able to share them with you.